Okay, so that's communication boards. Like I said, they can be really effective, but you have to be quite careful about using them with kids with autism. If you're going to use communication boards with kids with autism or individuals who have difficulty understanding that other people have different perspectives, then you need to make sure that you do an awful lot of direct teaching around gaining the attention of a communication partner, right? Otherwise, you just end up with people sitting at a book pointing to things by themselves. That's not communication. That's just pointing to a picture by yourself, right? Communication's a two-person job, at least, right? And a lot of our individuals with autism have great difficulty understanding that, okay? So because of that, the picture exchange communication system was developed. So remember yesterday I had that whole big thing about this is not a PEC, and it's not, right? The symbols are not PECs. It's because PECS is an instructional program, and PECS stands for the Picture Exchange Communication System. And PECS was designed specifically to teach functional communication skills, and it's based on the principles of applied behavior analysis. The two individuals who designed this, Dr. Andy Bondi and Lori Frost, were working at the Delaware Autistic Program way back in the 80s. Lori Frost is an SLP, and so she was working with all these little kids in early intervention programs trying to develop communication skills. Speech wasn't happening, so she's trying communication boards, and kids sometimes can't point to things, or they don't get the attention of their communication partners, all kinds of problems that they were having. And kind of it happened by accident. If you hear Andy and Lori talk about sort of the birth of PECS, they talk about this one particular situation with one particular kid where Lori was trying to get him to point to a symbol of the item that he wanted. And I think they were using Hot Wheels cars or something, highly motivating to the kid. And it wasn't working. She tried everything that she knew as an SLP and couldn't get this to take. So she called Andy down as the behavior analyst and come down and take a look at this. Like, what do you see? And so he watched and he said, well, okay, let's try this. Let's cut the board apart so that now instead of one board with two symbols on it, we have two separate symbols. And now let's see if we can actually just teach him to give you the symbol for what he wants. And so that was kind of the birth of PECS, and they sort of refined their ideas around that over time, but it was specifically designed to address some of these issues that kids with autism often have around initiating communication, gaining attention of another person before communicating, those kinds of things. So it was designed for young kids with autism, but that doesn't mean that you can't use it with other individuals. So it can be used with older children, it can be used with youth and adults, with autism or with other developmental disabilities, right? So a lot of times for individuals who have difficulty with communication boards because of the pointing issue, this will be where I go. This is almost always where I go for kids with autism now anyway, because we've got a lot of evidence regarding its effectiveness, right? And much more compared to, say, communication boards. So PECS has been identified as an evidence-based practice. Again, that group that I talked about yesterday that reviewed all of the evidence, they reviewed all of the PECS-based research and deemed that it was evidence-based for preschool children with autism, for children with autism from 6 to 14, and to address specifically social communication and joint attention skills. Joint attention skills being I, the child, and another person are both paying attention to the same thing at the same time, that skill set. So that's what we have research for now. That's not to say you can't use PECS with other individuals, older individuals, individuals who have a different developmental disability. It's just not yet evidence-based for them because we don't have enough research studies yet, right? So if you're a professional and you use good professional judgment, this looks like it would be appropriate for this 18-year-old with autism. If it's effective for the 18-year-old with autism, great, carry on, right? There's no rule that says you can't. We just don't have enough evidence at this point to say it's evidence-based for adults, okay? So PECS is appropriate in a whole bunch of situations. These are kind of the key questions to ask yourself. Does the person have functional communication to meet wants and needs, basic communication skills? If they do not, PECS is appropriate. And even if they do have basic functional communication skills, PECS may still be appropriate. There are some other things that we can teach using PECS that could expand their communication skills. Is the person understandable to unfamiliar communication partners? So sometimes a kid has some speech, but like only mom, dad, and the BI understand them and nobody else does. They're not understandable to everybody because their speech skills are still kind of developing, right? So if they're not understandable to other people, their peers don't understand them, the preschool teacher doesn't understand them, grandma and grandpa don't understand them, then yes, PECS is appropriate. Even if that's not an issue, PECS might still be appropriate. So either way, right? If they are understandable, PECS may still be appropriate. And then finally, does the individual initiate communication, right? So if they want something, do they go approach somebody else and communicate in some way? Or are they the kid who kind of sits there and waits for someone to make an offer, right? If they're not initiating communication, PECS is absolutely appropriate. It's designed specifically to teach initiation. Even if they are initiating, PECS may be appropriate. One of the things that PECS can be used to do is increase what's called the length of utterance. That's simply the number of words in a phrase or a sentence, and or increase vocabulary. So even for kids with autism or other developmental disabilities who have some speech that's functional and they're using that speech with other people and other people understand them, but maybe they're only using want car, want go, want slide, right? We can use PECS to actually help expand that language as a visual representation of the words that belong in a sentence and how to sequence those words. So we can introduce PECS to do some of that expansion and then fade PECS away as their speech then takes on all of those extra words. Does that make sense, right? So in terms of PECS, it involves a whole bunch of things you have to kind of do it right. You have to have functional activities and functional materials. PECS should be fun for the learner, should be enjoyable. So things that the person actually likes are going to be the things that you use when you're teaching. Powerful reinforcers are the other things that are really important. So things that the person really likes and wants, because PECS begins by teaching individuals to ask for the things that they want. They start with the most motivating things. Let's start with the thing that individuals are most motivated to communicate for. Individuals are usually most motivated to ask for things that they want. So that's where PECS begins. Teaching individuals to make requests from multiple communication partners in multiple settings. So that's something else that PECS addresses. So once the kid learns how to give a symbol to a person to ask for their favorite cookie, then PECS focuses on teaching individuals to go ask other people for a cookie, or go find their symbol and then take their symbol to ask someone for a cookie, and to do this at home and at preschool and at grandma's house, and right, so lots of settings, because what do we know about individuals with autism? They kind of tend not to generalize very well, right, if we don't target generalization in our teaching. So PECS includes that as well. The initial focus, though, is on this initiation of requests, getting kids to, on their own, think, hey, I want something, I will ask for it, right? That's where PECS begins. Over time, you can actually address more diverse, more complex kinds of sentence forms. So people sometimes think that PECS is just about asking, I want cookie, I want swing, I want whatever. And that's the beginning of PECS. You can go much, much further than that with PECS, right? The thing is that a lot of times people kind of stop. They get the kid asking for what he wants and everybody's happy now. The kid's not like freaking out for a cookie. So we're good, right? And it kind of just sits there. But we can teach kids to use descriptors. We can teach kids to comment with PECS. We can teach all kinds of other things with PECS. So if you really know how to implement the program, there are all kinds of things that you can teach. So there are 6 phases of PECS instruction, right? This is not a PECS workshop. I'm gonna let you know what PECS involves, and I'm going to tell you what you need to do if you want to implement PECS. But I want to go over the parts of PECS because I think a lot of times people think they're doing PECS. Lots of times they just think their visual schedule is PECS, and we addressed that yesterday, not PECS. Other people think that they're doing PECS because they have kids exchanging symbols for things, which is closer to PECS, yes, but they're not actually following the instructional protocol. If you're not following the instructional protocol in the manualized intervention package, you are not doing PECS. You are not doing that evidence-based practice that is PECS if you're not following the protocol, right? You're doing something else. Whether or not that works, I don't know. But if you want to be implementing the intervention known as PECS that has a lot of research support, you need specific training and you need to be implementing all 6 phases, right? If you're implementing PECS. So the first phase of PECS is just teaching the individual to pick up the symbol and give the symbol to their communication partner to get what they want, right? So if the kid is really into cheesies, we have a picture for cheesies. He doesn't need to look at the picture. He doesn't need to discriminate the picture. He only needs to pick up the picture and place the picture in the other person's hand. And the second he does, he gets a cheesy. That's how that works, right? We can use this with individuals who are using object cues. So I've done this before with students who are deaf-blind and individuals who are blind and have autism. Obviously, they're not going to be looking at pictures. They're going to have to exchange objects. It's a bit more of a hassle, but we can still do it, right? At the second phase, we're teaching individuals, now that they know how to exchange, now they have to pick up their picture and go find the person who has the goods. Right? And they have to bring the picture to the person with the cookie or the Hot Wheels car or whatever it is that they want. Then they also need to learn what to do if the picture isn't right in front of them. Well, I want the Hot Wheels car. I see you have the Hot Wheels car. Oh, my picture is over there. Get my picture, now go to the person, right? So again, about independent, functional, self-initiated communication. Because if we don't teach these things, we end up with individuals who are prompt dependent, and they only communicate when somebody says, go get your picture. Right? That's not independent communication, that's prompted communication. Right? That's not very functional in the long term. Phase 3 is where individuals learn to discriminate between symbols. So now they have 2 or 3 or 4 different symbols, and they have to learn how to select the correct symbol for what they want. Right? So discrimination of symbols doesn't even start until the 3rd phase. The first 2 phases are about initiation and about finding your communication partner and finding your symbol when you want to communicate. Phase 4 introduces sentences. So up until phase 4, kids have just been exchanging a single picture for what they want. If they want Hot Wheels cars, they have a picture of Hot Wheels cars, that's it. At phase 4, kids learn to combine a picture for I want with Hot Wheels cars on a sentence strip, rip the sentence strip off, give the sentence strip to their communication partner. And they learn how to make sentences. And at this point, they often will also be exposed to attributes, so adding things like colors, size, shapes, right? So I want the round cracker versus the square cracker, or I want the yellow Smartie versus the green Smartie. We can start to teach those kinds of things so that people can get even more refined in their requests. At phase 5, this is the first time that kids make a request in response to somebody else's questioning. So up until phase 4, nobody says anything to solicit a response from the kid. It's all about initiation. At phase 5, though, we introduce the question, what do you want? And then you tell me. Because sometimes out in the world, like when you're in the lineup at Starbucks, right? They either say something like, what do you want? Or what would you like to have today? Or what can I get you? Right? And so we want to teach kids how to respond to that question. And then finally at phase 6, we teach commenting. Right? And at commenting, you put a sentence together, you give the sentence strip to somebody, and you get nothing back but social feedback. Oh, that's right, you did see that it's raining today, I guess we should get our umbrella. Right? Commenting. Right? The reason that commenting is last is because in the broad scheme of things, it's like the least reinforcing thing for kids with autism. They're not really interested in social commenting. And we want to make sure that we teach the skills, so we start with things that are the most reinforcing for kids, teach the skill, and then when we get to commenting, we need to come up with some clever ways to make commenting fun as well. But commenting is the last thing that we teach. Right? Lots of times people stop right about here at phase 4. Right? Kids know how to ask for stuff, and then people forget that there's more of the program. Important to remember that, PECS isn't as easy as it looks. I've just listed out the 6 phases, and it doesn't sound like it's super easy, but it's also not rocket science, right? You can learn how to do this, but the very best way to learn how to implement PECS is to take their 2-day basic training. They have excellent 2-day training that is both workshop and hands-on practice. You sit in little groups of 3 people and you've got a little set of toys and symbols, and they come around and have you engage in practice, and they give you feedback, and you learn how to implement the program correctly because they think that that's very important, so do I. So that's a good way. Or if you don't have access to the training, work with someone who does have training. So there are a number of behavior analysts or behavior consultants around who have training, or SLPs who have training. I like to ask the question, have you actually been trained by the PECS people, right? Or have you just right? Because some people think that they've been trained but may not have been, right? So I like to look for people who have actually done training with the PECS folk, because they're more likely to have acquired at least the key components of the program. And PECScanada.com is the place to go and look. They're usually out in BC at least once a year, and often in the Lower Mainland once a year. So they do come by every so often. All right, so let's take a break here, and when we come back, I'll show you some pictures of different kinds of PECS supports